All right, guys. Next, we move to the prelim headliner. This is a pretty decent fight card in terms of they've stacked up a number of interesting matchups here. Um, Ludovit Klein taking on Thiago Moises in the lightweight division. Fascinating fight because Ludovit Klein, I thought he was pretty quality coming off of the regional scene, but I couldn't evaluate the level of competition he was facing. I just knew that he looked dangerous. He looked like he had some power. And so I bet him against Shane Young in his UFC debut. And he won that fight, knocked him out in the first round. Head kick, ground and pound, great showing there. Then against Mike Trezano, I think I bet Mike Trezano. I don't want to speak out of turn. So I'm going to pull up my previous bets on BetMMA.tips. I always like to keep myself accountable. So let's see here. Did I have any bets? Here we go. No, I'm misremembering. I had Shane Young, excuse me, for 1 unit at plus money, and he got killed. That's a terrible bet. But in any case, what I was thinking of is that I bet Mike Trezano. So I bet Mike Trezano against Ludovit Klein, and that was arguably a robbery decision. It was very, very close. Mike Trezano, obviously the line was off. He was plus 215. It was an extremely close fight, but that was a fight where, you saw Ludovit actually out wrestled Mike, took him down a couple of times. The striking exchanges were close. I was a little bit surprised that they gave it to Trezano, even though I bet him in that fight. Then you look at the Devontae Smith fight, and Ludovit Klein, guys, was plus 172. I thought that was insane. I thought that Ludovit had better cardio. So I was like, Devontae Smith, known gasser, like give me Ludovit Klein here. And I had him for 3 units plus 172. So I've done very well overall on Ludovit Klein fights. But I thought he was going to beat Nate Landwehr, and he ended up gassing out in that fight and losing the fight. I also took the ITD in the Devontae Smith fight with Ludovit Klein, and it ended up being a split decision there. So I've definitely not had a great read on the prop market, but I've had a decent enough read on the money lines. As for Thiago Moises, I've also done pretty well on Thiago Moises fights. If you look back, Thiago Moises, he's been a weird guy to handicap. Where I did really poorly, I thought he was going to beat Joel Alvarez. I thought he was going to make it look easy, and he ended up getting absolutely steamrolled in that fight early on. And when you look, you always want to learn the lessons of your bad bets, right? Why did I bet Shane Young? I'm guessing it was because it was a UFC debutant, a little bit unproven. Even in my mind, I had remembered betting on him. So like I misremembered that one, but you're like, okay, then I bet on Ludovit Klein as a dog in subsequent opportunities. I'm basically just looking to bet underdogs more often than not when I feel like there's a favorable opportunity. And so Shane Young, he's a proven bust now at the UFC level. But at the time, he was another guy who had more experience. He had been around. And so I was like, man, maybe this guy has enough to pull it off. And then meanwhile, we're looking at a guy in Thiago Moises who I thought he was going to pull it off against Joel Alvarez. But again, you want to learn the lessons. What did I learn from the Joel Alvarez fight? He does not respond well to pressure at all. If you're big, if you hit hard, if you get in his face, if you throw a lot of strikes, if you want to hurt him, Thiago Moises does not like to get hit. He does not like to get beat up. He does not like to get pressured. And obviously nobody does, right? But some people react better to it than others. And I think he wilts under pressure. So I bet Benoit Saint Denis minus 113 against Thiago Moises. It was a mugging. Took him down multiple times, beat him up on the feet, beat him up on the ground, out wrestled him, out grappled him for large portions. So he did get taken down. He did get put in a couple bad spots, but Benoit Saint Denis was able to work back to his feet, negate the grappling. So I think Thiago Moises is a dangerous guy, right? Against Michael Johnson, he proved, hey, I could go out there, snatch onto a quick submission, even in a fight I'm losing, gets 10-8'd in round 1, comes back out and finishes, right? Then you look, I also had him at plus 199. He was a plus 200 underdog against Alexander Hernandez, and he won that fight with his striking. People will forget that he just danced around him, used the jab, used the 1-2, used the low kick, and just beat him up for 15 minutes. When I'm thinking about this fight, I'm saying, you got a guy in Thiago Moises who is a good submission wrestler, a good grappler. I do think he's got an ability to submit Ludovit Klein. We've seen Ludovit Klein get submitted in the past. Nate Landwehr was able to take him out round 3 submission. Aiden Lee in Cage Warriors was able to take him out back in 2017, round 1, rear naked choke. Mike Trezano was able to compete with him in the grappling. Jai Herbert was able to compete with him in the grappling. So definitely we've seen some examples of guys competing with Ludovit Klein in the grappling. And Moises is a good grappler, right? He's a very sound grappler. He can wrestle very well. To the point of some of the people in our comment section right now, sharpest chat in the game. Appreciate every one of you guys. You look at this guy, Moises, and he is 8-1 career to the submission. He submitted Mel Costa, Christos Yagos, Michael Johnson, all in the UFC. Prior to that, he had submitted Jeff Peterson on the regional scene, Javon Wright. He knocked out Jamal Emmers in the 5th round of their fight as well. That's a pretty impressive win. So I think that you look through, and he's fought a lot of fighters. He's fought pretty quality guys, but lost by decision to Jason Knight, lost by decision to Robert Watley, lost by decision to Beneil Dariush, lost by decision to Demiris Magulov, got finished by Islam Makhachev, got TKO'd in the 1st round by Joel Alvarez, got TKO'd in the 2nd round by Thiago Moises. So then you have to start wondering to yourself, okay, what do these wins mean? Mel Costa, he's a guy that we don't really know what to make of him, but he got knocked out by Steve Garcia. He beat Austin Lingo via decision. And then he got submitted by Thiago Moises. That's his UFC career so far to date. So hasn't really proven a lot to us. Don't really know what to make of that win. Christos Yagos is an extreme flake, 6-8 in the UFC, been finished in 6 out of 8 losses as well. Very large percentage. So not a great look from Yagos. Then Mitch Ramirez, a guy that doesn't seem like he's UFC level. He struggled in his UFC level bouts, 8-2 as a professional, lost to Thiago Moises, lost to Carlos Prates on the Contender Series. So a guy who struggled. And then you look at Joel Alvarez. Joel Alvarez has been on, some harder times in the UFC, right? 5-2, obviously, but lost to Arman Sarukian via brutal finish his very next fight. So Arman's obviously a dangerous guy, but if you guys watch that one back, it was a complete bloodbath. It was a sickening, disgusting beatdown. The Islam Makhachev fight, you saw Thiago was able to compete a little bit in the wrestling at portions of that fight, but on the feet, he didn't have much for him. His cardio was not holding up over 5 rounds. He did not like to be pressured. Shout out to Pepe, says Trezano had Klein in a very deep submission as the clock expired in round 3 as well. Tough fight to get a read on. Shout out to a very sharp guy in Pepe. That's a great point. So for me, this fight is kind of like, some of the other fights we talked about where it's a clear dichotomy. I could see Baeza by sub. I could see Punahele Soriano by knockout. I could see Ludovit Klein by knockout. I could see Thiago Moises by sub. That's the way that I kind of see this fight going. I think that Moises does not like to be hit. He does not like to be hurt. He does not like to be backed up. He does not like to be pressured. I think Klein could do all those things in this fight if he chooses to. But I also think that Klein likes to be able to take people down. He likes to be able to get on top. He likes to be able to work in his own offensive wrestling and grappling. And I think against Thiago Moises, he's not going to be able to do that at a very high level. I think it would create some danger for him. I do think Moises can be taken down, but I also think he's dangerous. In any grounded position, he could create a quick scramble. So for me, it's an interesting fight. I certainly think there could be value on the Moises money line. I would not lay chalk with a guy like Ludovit Klein based on what we know. I want to pull up again our friends over at Fight Numbers, their odds board, pulling in the best available odds. And let's see what this fight has for us. So we've got Thiago Moises plus 110 over at BetMGM, taking on Ludovit Klein, who is minus 125 over at Bet365. So I think from a money line standpoint, I'd be more willing to take a guy like Moises, who's proven he can go out there, win UFC decisions against quality guys, and also go out there and finish, go out there and get submissions. But I think that if this fight is to end via knockout in round 1, I think it's going to be Ludovit Klein at a pretty decent clip. I think he's a scarier striker. I think he hits with more power. I think he's a little more confident and aggressive. That's the one thing that really holds me back with Thiago Moises. I think he can get down on himself. I think he can be a little bit lackluster at times. Maybe his move to the fighting nerds will make him a little more assertive. He seemed assertive against Mitch Rodriguez, but it was also with the low kicks. It was, take him apart over time. And I do think to myself, like, man, this guy, if he doesn't mix in the ground game here, and he just goes out there to try and low kick this guy, Ludovit Klein, I think he might get his head blasted off. So great fight. Kind of lean towards the fight not to go as well. Just from a gut feeling standpoint, I think Ludovit makes mistakes on the ground where he could give something up. And I also think he could just clip Thiago in the first round. So shout out to our guy, Ozuan. Give me violence. I am with you there, brother.